Hey, what is up there, boys? It is Tom with Game Leap, and it is top lane tier list time for patch 14.3. Here on screen, we have a tier list made by our very own challenger coaches over here at Game Leap. Covering all of these champions would be pretty rough, so we're going to be honing in on a few notable mentions for every tier. Up first, the C tier. The C tier list is composed of champions who can fill their own niche category, and when picked in their perfect spot, they can take over a game in their very own way. Tryndamere is, sadly, only in C tier because as awesome as he is at being an unstoppable split pusher, tank items have really made his life hard since the beginning of Season 14. Frozen Heart only setting a tank back 2400 gold for an insane amount of armor stacks, CDR, and mana is kinda crazy. Most tanks now rush Barmy's Cinder for wave clear into finishing Frozen Heart to nullify Tryndamere's oppressive early game. But thankfully, in the recent patch of 14.3, Tryndamere got a buff through Kraken Slayer and Stridebreaker. These two item buffs allow him to power creep back up into the mid-game and still hold his identity as an insane split pusher. Pick Tryndamere in spots where you have a solid 4-man team comp, which usually involves 1 or 2 tanks and a couple of long-range carries who can wave clear. This setup allows you to split push freely without having to worry about grouping up with your team to impact the game. Instead, you'll be split pushing and generating pressure for your team to easily siege and meet up with you instead. Now, our next champ is even more insane. In fact, it isn't even a champion at all. Now bear with me on this one, boys, because this game gets a real bad rap, and we are speaking, of course, of Raid Shadow Legends. And the bad rap usually comes down to 3 main misconceptions that people have about this gosh damn video game. First of all, people claim that it's brain dead, there's no depth, there's no strategy. You're wrong. We are talking over 800 champions, and it is up to you to figure out how to use them best. We talk about dozens of different boss fights in which some champions function better than others. We talk about champion team compositions, guys that work together, those that most certainly do not. And the whole thing comes together to be one giant puzzle for wrinkly brain gamers only. And the challenges don't stop with the dungeons that you are seeing on screen right now, far from it. We are talking about practically endless endgame progression by the time you reach the Doom Tower and the Cursed City. Another huge misconception about Raid is that it is some kind of massive time sink. Now, while that might be the case for me because I'm a sweaty degenerate who can't put the game down, for most folks it just doesn't have to be like that. First of all, there's an auto battle feature in Raid. You can literally set up your champs to be grinding whatever you want them to grind in between your League of Legends queues, man. And the final sweaty misconception about Raid is that it is all just about pay to win. And obviously putting some cash into the game is going to help you to progress faster, but type Raid free to play on YouTube and you will literally find thousands of channels that are playing completely free to play and honestly have some incredibly powerful accounts. There is only one correct way to sign up to Raid Shadow Legends, and that is via the link down below at the top of the video description or by scanning the QR code above my head right now. The reason for that is free stuff. By using our link, you will unlock the epic attack champion Juliana as soon as your account hits level 15, which believe me, doesn't take very long. You will also be starting off your account with 500,000 silver on top of a whole bunch of other starting resources. Once again, that is the link at the top of the video description or the QR code above my head. And hey, when you do join Raid, make sure to join my clan, GL Bootcamp. Strictly for beginners and noobs only. That's why I'm in there. Now is also probably a decent time to mention that while you're down there in the video description, you might notice a link to the Game Leap Raid YouTube channel. Head on over there and subscribe as well, man. It would be awesome to see you over there. And alright, moving on to the classic monolith champ of top lane, Malphite in the past was always a consistent tank and engage, at least until the release of his greatest enemy, Sylas. But as time went on, Malphite's kit has become outdated to more than just that matchup, but he is still the best tank if picked versus his ideal comp. If the enemy team drafts a few auto-attack based champions as their carries and you ban away Sylas, then by all means, insta-lock this champion. If you were trying to not be a boring tank player, then there is always a more fun Malphite playstyle, where you can imitate a nuclear warhead by building full AP and one-shotting targets of your choice before inevitably blowing up yourself and dying. Not that we'd recommend that playstyle of Game Leap at all, but there it is. For the tank Malphite build, you will be starting off with a Doran's Shield, and your first item will be Barmy's Cinder to assist you in wave clear. Follow that up with the boots of your choice, usually being plated steel caps or merc treads, and your first completed item will either be Frozen Heart or Kernick Rucken, depending on the type of matchup you are up against. Your third item should be either Kernick or Frozen Heart, whichever one you did not build yet, and following this 3-item core, you finish the Barmy Cinder into Sunfire or Hollow Radiance, and the rest of the build is situational to what you need. For the AP Malphite build, should you deign to try it, you build Doran's Ring. First item should be Lost Chapter, with it finishing into a Malignance. From there you get Sork's Shoes and get Storm Surge for Burst. And yes, with my accent, we simply don't pronounce the letter R if it appears in the middle of a word. The items following up can vary between Lichbane for Burst and CDR, Shadow Flame to ensure that one squishy dies, or Decap. Your runes will be Comet, Manaful Band, Transcendence, and Scorch. Secondary tree is Cheap Shot and Ultimate Hunter for max ulti cooldown. The mini runes are double adaptive damage and scaling HP. The B tier category is for champions who are generally good when picked regardless of circumstances, as they each have their own strong identity where if you play to their strengths, you can simply carry games with them. Illaoi has been in a rough spot since Season 14 with the top lane map changes, making the walls near the river farther from lane so your tentacle spawns would not be as helpful. In patch 14.3, Riot have changed things so your tentacles gained bonus range, and now she is back to being the lane bully she was designed to be. Her playstyle being the head of a fisherman is really obnoxious, as all she does is push your wave and use E to harass you under turret with really little to no risk. Don't even think about contesting her push, because if she has 1 or 2 tentacles up, she will just click WQ and win the trade. Once out of lane phase, that's when Illaoi's weakness appears, as she isn't as strong as a team fighter. Her strength comes from unsuspecting targets willingly walking into her range and ulting for max DPS. For builds, we recommend going Doran's Shield into defensive boots, as Illaoi has a lot of base damage in her Q and tentacle slams. Your first item should be Sundered Sky for the healing and CDR, which is then followed up by either Iceborne Gauntlet, Spear of Shojin, or Starax. All of these bruiser items can be built in any order, and you can round out your build with the situational tank item such as Frozen Heart or Koenig Rucken. Next up, Riven has always been a fan favorite and consistently strong, so why has she slumped down to B tier? Well, Riven in the past has always worked super well alongside the items over the years, but in Season 14, her items for once don't allow her to dominate the top lane like she used to. That being said, she is still extremely strong if played by the right players. Look at Viper, for example. Her playstyle is still the same, with abusing her passive to overtake the early game and then spiking post level 6 into the mid game. Her mobility is still top tier, it's just the items no longer grant her that insane sustain she once had with Ravenous Hydra. So let's get into the build. There are tons of builds going around right now, but here is what we recommend for the most consistent results with Riven. Start the lane off with Doran's Blade for the strong early game prowess Riven has, and your first item will be Serrated Dirk. From here, I recommend finishing Boots of Lucidity to get that early CDR going, and then rush Profane Hydra. Following that, build Sundered Sky for more CDR and healing, and go Death's Dance to start getting tanky. From here, you can build whatever you want, such as more raw damage in lethality items, or more bruiser-like with Black Cleaver. And alright, with that, we have made it into the A-tier champs. A-tier is a category of champions who excel in the majority of matchups, and are strong enough through items or their own kit to thrive without a whole lot to stand in their way. Cassante has been a powerhouse of a champion since release, and he was only weak for one patch. His tankiness and ability to dish out damage is already insane as is, but only gets even more broken once she switches to all-out form. There really isn't that much more to talk about when it comes to Cassante, because if you played top lane within the past 6 months, then you already know the obscene power of this utter monstrosity. So let's get straight into the build, and how you can abuse it for easy LP. The build starts off with Doran's Shield into either defensive boot option. Your first item will be Iceborne Gauntlet for early damage and tankiness. The slow field allows you to get the chase going, and makes it very hard to run away from Cassante's engage. Next, you'll be building like every other tank going, either Frozen Heart or Koenig Rucken, depending on the matchup, and then finish off the build with more tank items of your choice. For runes, take Grasp, Demolish, Second Wind or Conditioning, and Overgrowth. Secondary tree is going to be Biscuits and Cosmic. The mini runes are attack speed and double scaling HP. Next up, Rumble has been the GOAT of all time for top lane, and if Season 13, if you played him, Elo was pretty much raining upon your account. The same thing goes for Season 14 as well, but the unfortunate release of Koenig made it so that he is less oppressive versus tanks, but Rumble still finds ways to be useful. The biggest challenge for learning Rumble is learning heat management, and in all honesty, it's not that hard. After hitting level 3 and getting all 3 abilities unlocked, just hover your heat at around 100, so that when you need to do so, you cast all 3 abilities at once to overheat, and just go all in. Rumble has been super oppressive after removing the defensive mini runes such as the MR one, and with Haunting Guise returning, this champion is a bit of a problem. For builds, you can start off with Doran's Shield and then rush Sorc Shoes for early combat, as your abilities already have pretty high base damage. Your first item will be Liandry's, as Rumble likes taking extended fights, so increasing your damage by up to 2% per second is pretty nice. Following Liandry's, you want Crypt Bloom for the CDR and bonus pen. This is when you are at your strongest. At 2 items, you want to force every teamfight imaginable with your ult. From here, you want to build situationally. If the enemies are high mobility, getting Rocket Belt isn't a bad choice, and if you wish to be tankier, then Riftmaker is a solid option. The choice is yours, but squeeze in Zhonya's somewhere along the way to round it out. For runes, go Comet, Nimbus Cloak, Transcendence, and Scorch, and the secondary tree is going to be Taste of Blood and Ultimate Hunter. For the mini runes, Double Adaptive and Scaling HP. And finally, we've reached the S tier. These champions are the apex predators of top lane and have little to no bad matchups. They are strong throughout the entire game, and with every item and component, they are spiking. Let's begin with Aatrox. The champion is nutty, and there's no way around it. Being able to deal damage and move like Riven while also healing 5 times as much is very balanced. This champion spikes at level 4 with his insane level scaling on his Q, and yes, he doesn't even need an item yet to become an insane demon. Just making it to level 4 will do that on its own. From there, you already have more damage regen than 90% of champions in the game, thanks to your passive and E. And don't even get started about level 6. There are virtually no losing matchups for Aatrox, as you can easily clear waves and create space with your Qs and then escape with E. Once you've established a lead, just landing 1 Q can equal death for the enemy. There isn't much else to say other than lock him in for free LP. He's been OP for the past 6 months. For builds, you're going to be going Doran's Blade into defensive boots. You are going Boots Rush because you want the mobility to land your Qs and to stick on your enemies. You also already have enough base damage in your Q as stated before. Your first item should be Profane Hydra, and then go into Sundered Sky. After that, grab Spear of Shojin, and congrats, the build is done. From there on, you can basically build whatever the hell you want. For the runes, take Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Tenacity, and Last Stand. Secondary runes are Conditioning or Second Wind with Overgrowth. For mini runes, key in Double Adaptive Damage with HP Scaling, and you are set. And that'll about do it. Remember to sign up to Raid Shadow Legends by clicking the link at the top of the description box or scanning the QR code on screen right now to start your account with the free epic champion, Juliana. And I will see all of you guys in the next one.